Okay, so the summary goes, the caravan is a story of redemption. The son of an Afghan tycoon, Amir, has done many wrong things in his life. Most of his childhood was spent in Afghanistan with the seeking of acceptance from his father, who had turned distant towards him, and also with his companion Hassan. Hazara, who is absolutely loyal to Amir. And in Amir's true glory, he sacrifices his companion, bewildered by lies and racial intentions.
Hold on. Okay. Today we will be discussing about the book Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini.
Okay, so the summary goes, Kite Runner is a story of redemption. The son of an Afghan tycoon, Amir, has done many wrong things in his life. Most of his childhood was spent in Afghanistan, seeking of acceptance from his father, who had turned distant towards him, and also with his companion Hassan. Hazara, who is absolutely loyal to Amir. And in Amir's true glory, he sacrifices his companion, bewildered by lies and racial tensions.
The second part of the story shows Amir in America, and he seems to have washed his hands off his sins. He gets his novel published, goes to tertiary education, and gets his friendly wife. Though the past and sins are not only him, but also those around him, flag him and refuse to kill.
Eventually, he is thrilled towards redemption once more when he returns to Afghanistan and searches for a child named Sohrab, the son of the one he had betrayed. But in his search for Sohrab, he is punished, perhaps by fate, and beat up by Asif and the Taliban. However, he finally gets this illusion suicidal Sohrab to America and adopts him. True, though he has redeemed his sins, he makes a final attempt to drag Sohrab out of his obsession with the past, and the way he does this is an old tradition and hobby of his and Hassan's, kite running.
How did Amir's eventual maturity factor at turning point in the story? For example, when he was about to leave Afghanistan from Kabul, and when he was about to return to Kabul for his search for Sohrab. Is pain always necessary in relation?
In this case, not really, because what is that Amir's pain, Amir's guilt, the thing he didn't redeem was built upon. It was caused by Hassan's pain. So because of that, I think it's a specific case for which that Amir's redemption implied pain. But it's totally, it's not really necessity.
The way I see it, it seems like more redeeming yourself also requires you to face atone for your past sins.
Yeah.
But not just that, the fact that you have to go on to your guilt for 20 years is a form of pain, because every day you're being haunted by what you've done in the past, and then you have to bear that guilt and that kind of regret. So it is because of the pain that Amir eventually sought to relieve this pain by redeeming himself, by going back to find Hassan.
And the peak experience also found in
Yeah, so this means that there must be pain, because if there's no pain, then you will find relief.
why did it take so long for Amir to finally face his sins?
Because I think as a child, when I think when an incident happened, right, the child will always tend to run away from stuff, and they will try to hide away from reality. And then only when he grew up, he really realized that he should not run, he should not continue to run away from his sin and do something about it.
And I think there was more of an experience of Amir in America because he had a wife who originally I think she was raped or had sex with someone else, and it was deemed as a disgraceful act. But because Amir has his own guilt, he was able to forgive her. And it was because of such experiences where he keeps recounting and recollecting every single thing that he did in Afghanistan that made him feel guilty. He finally, it took this kind of 20 years or 30 years of recollection for him to understand the severity and for him to actually bother to go and redeem himself. It's like when he began in America, it was once a happy life where he and Baba had a lot of problems in America. But as time grew on, his life eventually improved. He became a writer, he moved to university, and he had a wife. But it was because of this success that enables him to have time and the energy to go and think about what he'd done before. Because otherwise he would live in everyday circumstances that prevent his eventual return to Afghanistan.
But I don't think that's the reason why he's doing so, because in the first place, the reason that was mentioned is because Rahim was dying. So he wanted to go back, because in the book they mentioned that Rahim was his inspiration to go. So he was, because Rahim was in that way, that he went back to Afghanistan, he went back to Pakistan to look for Rahim. And it is only there that Rahim told him the secret of Assam, where everything comes into pieces, that he tries to believe is good, because not only as an adult he is more mature in everything, but he realizes that everything he did was wrong from the start, and he needed to do something about it immediately.
The point is, I think that why it is wrong for him to finally face his decision to go and seek God emotion, to seek just that he was power. He's just running away from home. Because originally, right, he stood up for Hassan before Hassan was getting raped. I think there will be no story about it. He will have a very happy ending. So, if that had not happened, he didn't need to face his sins, and it wouldn't be necessary for him to go and to be him.
The question how, at the precise moment where Rahim was actually asking Amir to go search for Soda, Rahim actually forced him to think about what he already had. And it was because Amir eventually realized that whatever he had was also because of what he had given up in the past. And it was also this form of guilt.
Basically, he learned the friendship.
So he had to pay it back by searching for Soda.
I would think that the father has also something to do with this, because we mentioned he also means exposing the truth that of his sins. And then back then when he was still young, he was trying to win his father's, he was trying to get closer to his father by trying to be a better son. So by exposing all these sins that he had done, right, having a trouble which his father didn't want him to be, he might, I think, Amir did not want to retain himself back then, because he didn't want to leave a bad impression on his father. So that's why he did it.
So I think the most important factor that is like he wanted so much he wanted to relieve himself with his father. He didn't make up like he didn't help Hassan. He didn't stop Hassan from living with him because he wanted to kite. Because kite is the only way to win his father's trust.
So, in Amir's search for redemption, or sort of like redeeming himself towards his father, he also created another sin. So, can we say that sin creates sin? And it's a chain of sin. What if Amir takes Hassan's love as an insult to him?
Because I think the basic thing is because Amir thinks that the dad doesn't like him because Amir is weak and he cannot stand up for himself. So that's what the dad has always told him, right? You stand up for yourself, then you can be a true man, or you can't do anything in life. Amir thinks he lacks. That's why Amir thinks his father doesn't like him. So he looks to Hassan and looks at him. I mean, Hassan is the one who's always protecting him. So maybe it's because Hassan was partially the reason why this image was created of himself. And also because of that, he looks down on Hassan. Because Hassan is always standing up for Amir, making him take all the responsibilities, get beaten up and stuff like that. And he never thinks of himself. So probably because of that, he looks down on Hassan and sees Hassan as a reflection of himself, which he looks down on. So he thinks it's insulting to be compared to someone like him.
The way I see it is one, Hassan is something that Amir aspires to. Hassan is also something that Amir aspires to. He aspects that Amir admires is that of bravery, that of courage, that of honesty. But the thing that Amir just really dislikes, just doesn't know what to do about is Hassan's heritage or traits that he is a Hassan. So because of this disorder, Amir creates something that's bipolar inside him. He's ashamed of himself for being unable to become a Hassan. And therefore, he really dislikes it when Hassan protects him or improves loyalty to him because it's just making him feel lethargic towards himself or what he can become.
The point is, I think why Amir thinks that Hassan probably is himself is basically because he wants to be treated as an equal. If you see in the book, right, Hassan treats Amir like always as his master, always protecting him, telling him, serving him, right? But I think what Amir really wants is to be treated as an equal. Because you can see, right, Hassan has always been listening to Amir. He does almost everything he says. Even when Amir threw the ball every day, and that's really fact that he has put that anxiety to the meeting because he felt that it was more or less his way of being loyal to Amir. But what I think Amir wanted was for Hassan to be an equal, so that Hassan and him were close together in the master and slave relationship. Because if they were equal, right, then he wouldn't feel so bad in the first place. Because if you remember from the pomegranate, Amir also wanted Hassan to show pomegranate at him because it would make him feel pain, so that he can at least have experience things that to be alive. So that's what I think.
Yeah, I feel it's about, it's more of like Amir is going through some inner conflict. It's
to be some sense of well-being, but it can be doubted. It doesn't have to be rock solid, and the relationship between Amir and Hassan.
At times, moments of like doubt and victory and sort of super emotional things. And sometimes we kind of expect these kind of problems inside a relationship. So we do not expect our friends to be forever or whatever sort of way. But it's because that we have such small conflicts that we can actually move on and better our bonds with each other. For example, Amir's issue with Hassan, like at the end of his road for redemption, he began to feel more and he was even stronger than what he felt before at the start of the story. It was like, oh, Hassan is my best friend, my only friend.
I think, right, to be honest, right, we cannot expect any rock solid things. Everyone needs to be true. Because even in any relationship, even with partner and wife, unwavering loyalty is very the case. That is why I think, right, that it's very hard to expect unwavering loyalty in any relationship, not only in friendship.
I think unwavering loyalty is something that also brings up issues. For example, if you are true to your friend, you want him to improve, you can't support him in everything that he does. There are times where you object to him, where you just get a quarrel with him. But it's through this that friends always get closer and they improve, like in character, abilities, whatever. And yeah, and unwavering loyalty, in that case, unwavering loyalty is like a slave master relationship, not a slave master relationship, which makes people, which puts people on different playing fields. And you have a master in the friendship and a slave. So yeah, sometimes this kind of relationship isn't always very healthy.
In our opinion, what Baba and you are why?
Definitely not key. Basically, right, an ideal father is one that will build up a strong relationship. He will build a close relationship with the child and slowly nurture the child. That's the point that I think. But however, right, Baba didn't really do that. If you remember from story, basically Baba was a very bad uncle. He was very distant from Amir, and that's not really true anymore. So basically it's true because when he sees Amir, he finds the reflection of himself that he wants to forget the status of society and not of society. Right? So that is why I think that Baba wasn't having fun.
But I'm not just talking about Baba and having fun towards only, I'm talking about his relationship with Hassan. Because we can also define Baba as a father, the father of Hassan, and through his actions he also had Hassan with. And the way I see it, Baba's actual seeing that Amir's reflection of himself also tends to support Amir's development journey. Usually, it's not like Baba is always anti-Amir sort of relationship. He also tries to support Amir's life in America, for example, helping him find a life, making education. In the end, he also sacrificed his own health to support him, and a lot of money, 10,000 for marriage. So you can see that Baba was sort of a good father in terms of how much he supported Amir, although it wasn't like really frontal, but it was more backstage relationship.
Yeah, I think before we look into the question, just first of all, an idea of what an ideal father is. So an ideal father, maybe we can take it as a father who really cares about his son, not considering what actually he takes. Because some of the actions that he does, right, it affects like other indirectly caused his wife death, but then he takes care of it when Amir does well for him. He also he's also happy with it. And from the case of Hassan, when Amir says that asked for a switch of servers, right, and Baba actually protected his son, Hassan, saying that you will never be switching servers after some of the always be fast. Hazara group of people that are very discriminated, and people who associate themselves with them are also being somewhat discriminated. So Baba is still protecting his son even though those conditions. So I still think that Baba is
in my opinion, right, Baba can't be considered as any father because Baba has two sons. We talk about Amir, we talk about Hassan. His son with another wife, with another woman. So, Baba actually cannot accept the fact that cannot acknowledge Hassan as his son. So he has been hiding this fact from Amir for a very long time. So because of this, Baba finds difficulty in connecting well with Amir. So he feels
I think add on to Iman's point, although Baba is a father who shows a lot of concern for both his sons, because whenever Amir goes out for anything, Baba will tag Hassan along, and an excuse. It's an indirect way of showing his love for his illegitimate son. And in America, in California, you can see that Baba is trying a lot to give his son a better life and stuff like that. But I think an ideal father has to be able to demonstrate what he wants to teach to his son. So in this case, that Baba has a relationship with Ali's wife and has Hassan. And I think being a coward and not admitting to the fact, not recognizing that Hassan is his son, is what a bad guy or a failure is to Baba himself, because a successful person to Baba himself must stand up for what he does, must take the responsibility for his actions. And I think that in that aspect, he has failed to demonstrate to his son, Amir, what standing up to your actions is. And he has been hiding that all the way to his death day. He's just trying to hide a secret, and I think that is the power that Amir initially saw in himself. So in that way, he's not. Yeah, I think we have to argue that Baba is not a good father. Because the father should actually allow his son or daughter to feel comfortable with him. But what I'm saying is, Amir trying his very best to impress his father, and I don't think the father should be someone who is just trying to get his son to make him feel proud. It should be unconditional. So that's something that Baba
trying to make emotional, but he really demonstrated his actions protecting Hassan. And he was also something that I think is critical for all fathers, is the protection of your own son. Because you definitely, as a father, you definitely wouldn't have your son being injured by any past sins that you committed on your son. For example, kick out your son.
But then my stand is that if you say you need to protect your son, but by not recognizing Hassan as your own son, you are in fact not protecting him, because you cannot get full control over him and you can't express your love directly to him. So everything has to be indirect. And that's what a father fails to do. If you can't even face your own son,
prevented the other two children from actually receiving any physical, psychological harm or damage that further affects their later lives.
那因为现场老大爷对于旁边非常多，对，那第一呢，老大爷在旁边处理一个，旁边我们处理的话，right stories，对，那在旁边 right stories，我们就说so I guess it's one flaw about my father. He didn't listen to his heart as much as he tried to change, tried to make it more of what he is, what he is not really like.
Okay, so personally for me, as a child, my father wasn't really very active in the childhood because he was very busy with our stuff. So I think so that my childhood was more or less very, you see, I personally really do a lot of flying kites, going out to stay houses on the beach kind of thing. Although I had uncles and my mom who brought me home, but I think the main thing that was there was a strong father to bring me up and fun in the way that only guys have fun and person. So if you look at Baba and Amira, it's more or less the same thing because Baba and Amira, their relationship is quite recent. The only thing they wanted to do together was their parenting competition. Even after that, they separated and both of them went to got their own separate ways. After dinner, Baba would go to study and Amira would go to the room and do his stuff. So that's why I think that Baba is really a nice father.
But I think I can understand that because in a relationship, the father is usually more passive than the mother. So yeah, I mean, the fact that he forced Amir to study, to become a doctor and stuff like that, I can understand it because their life is hard and those jobs can get you high income and more comfortable life here in America. So that I can understand because it's what most fathers always dream of their son to become.
In general, how have preconceptions shaped our own friendships and relationships pertaining to how Kite Runner has changed anything?
Okay, so why do you think simple words are used for the book? Usually, book in other fiction books that we read, there's always tough words, stuff that you have to check up in the dictionary. But in this book, in the Kite Runner, the words and the vocab used are relatively simple. So why is that so? Do you think there's any reason behind it?
Well, basically, I think it's because this book is more or less about kids and their friendship. So the simple words portray, it makes the reader feel that the book is written by kids. So it portrays a sense of innocence. It also shows that at heart, right, the Amir and Hassan are still actually I would say kids, because even though they have been exposed to many of the world's stuff, right, they still retain an innate sense of good towards other people. So I think that's what makes them feel that they are like kids, and that's why this book is more or less written in simple language.
I think it's just the author's choice of point of view, the view that he wanted to portray. So in this case, he wanted to make the readers feel more closer to the plot. So he decided to use the first person point of view, and that's why he wanted to make it feel like it's like we are reading a kid's journal, and so he used more of a child language.
The way that he wrote it was, Kite Runner is something like more of a dark story. Instead of being innocent, like what you said, Kite Runner is not that much of an innocent story, but more how guilty he feels. I don't think it's very valid that innocence is played throughout the whole story.
No, the point I think is used to contrast the innocence, because if you see from the book, right, both of them, even though the book is very dark, the simple words portray a sense of like childlike. So it makes them seem innocent, but actually the book itself is, the story itself is very, how do you say, dark and deep.
I think like what the book is written in, it's a memory. So you, as a kid, you preserve your own memory, and if you're a kid, if you were to talk about stuff that happened, then the things that you think of are also very simple and stuff like that. Just like what happened at the time. Amir didn't think so much about why his father cared so much about Hassan. He didn't think too much about all that stuff, and that's why he made all those mistakes. I think it's also part of the fact that it's part of his memory as a kid. So things should be kept simple so that it's more realistic. Because from the start of the book, you can see that he's trying to recall what's happening.
Yeah, to build on his point, I think that the author is trying to show that such dark stuff, right, don't just happen in the world of adults. It also, some kids are also suffering in other countries, and he's just trying to portray that it's also happening in the child world.
I have a new question. Do you think whatever Amir did was his fault?
No.
Do you think whatever Amir
Cut.
Talk.
Do you think whether everything that Amir did in his story that can turn out to be a sin was his fault? Can you say it was his fault, or was it the fault of someone else? Relatively easy, right?
Okay, great.
Do you think that everything Amir did, like all his mistakes in the story, his betrayal of Hassan, do you think all of this was his fault, or was it the fault of something else, something in his environment or the people around him?
I think it's not always his fault. Like for him to betray his friend, but he was a kid and he didn't know how to handle that type of situation, especially when it comes to stuff like, you know, rape, this kind of thing. Psychologically, it's a trauma for him. And for Amir, he himself is also very guilty of, letting Hassan get raped, stuff like that. So I think it's also part of his guilt that he does that. So it's not all bad. Plus, if the father, if Baba had told him about what he has done and Hassan being his son, I think all this stuff won't happen, because logically speaking, Amir will stand up for Hassan and do something.
I think if you compare to like real world standards currently, most of what we call profligates can be attributed to whatever happens in their environment. So if we use that theory on Amir, then his environment would be that of an uncaring, a distant father. But he also had someone to care over him, so it's both a plus and a minus. But it was mostly because of the revelations that were presented to Amir that he never actually thought about before, like Hassan being Hazara, being his slave instead of being his friend. It was this kind of revelation that was given to him by the environment around him that shaped his thinking and caused him to create all these mistakes. It wasn't a personal psychological fault of his to make all these different decisions that were morally inappropriate.
Basically adding on to Wen Hao's point, so this whole story is centers around Amir's search for redemption. So the reason why Amir actually betrayed Hassan and not tried to save him when Hassan got raped is because he wanted to redeem himself for Baba. Redeem himself to Baba because he wanted to do kind work to be able to redeem himself to Baba. So it is actually partly Baba's fault, because in the first place Baba didn't want to reveal to Amir that about what he did last time, and that Hassan is actually Amir's half brother. So because of this, Baba was very hard on Amir. Amir didn't feel the love that Amir didn't feel the Baba's love for him. So this is why Amir had his search for redemption. So it's partly Baba's fault.
I think we cannot really judge who is at fault. We cannot say like Amir is totally at fault for whatever that he has done, even though we must agree that there's also something wrong in him that caused him to do what he did. So I feel that in everyone everyone has their own judgment, and what we consider moral might be viewed as immoral in other people's eyes. So this judgment, I feel that Amir did not really grasp his judgment properly, and therefore he did not stood up to some stuff that we deem he should have done, and therefore I feel that it is partly Amir's fault because he did what he's not supposed to do, and the environment is also at fault because of his relationship with Hassan and his desire to do his father proud, to make his father proud, and therefore we cannot really justify who is at fault, but there are many factors that are contributing to what happened.
Okay, ultimately, right, I believe that since it's the environment that shapes who we are more or less, basically it's also more or less the fault, not Amir's fault, but it's more or less the fault of the people around him and the circumstances as to why he made that mistake. Because if you see, right, from the part where he wanted Hassan to get the blue kite for him, right, why he didn't intervene was because he wanted the blue kite. And the reason he wanted the blue kite was because he wanted to show it to Baba to make Baba proud of him. However, if Baba had shown a bit more care and appreciation to Amir in the first place, then I don't think Amir would have felt that much of a need to have the blue kite. So much so that he would abandon his friend Hassan when he was getting raped. That's why I think it's more of the environment to do with the wrongs that he did rather than him himself personally.
Plus, I think that it's not just the environment, it's in every kid that if you can't even get the love and care of your parents, then what's the point of having friends? Plus, he was influenced by his own race, that the Hazaras are, inferior, and maybe he began to doubt whether Hassan was true to him. And in that case, I think it's not just his fault. I mean, maybe that's the way Baba tried to show his love. So, not his fault, not entirely the kid nor the dad's fault, but it's just coincidence of factors that resulted in the tragedy.
But if you attribute those all towards the environment, you also have to consider that there was, to some degree, it was also Amir's fault.
Yeah,
Because
we agree.
there are some times where people are put into extreme circumstances, and they are still able to triumph over these extreme circumstances through sheer moral will. And there was Amir's inability to think of his moral compass and more of his father, which I deem as inappropriate, that led to Hassan being sodomized by Arsene.
But I think it's like, for a kid he can't possibly know so much, because maybe for a kid, father's love values more than a friend's trust.
But he was kind of told time and time again by his father to man up. So I think that counts for something.
But I think he saw it as a form of scolding for him. To him, his father's strict discipline and stuff like that. To him, he didn't see it as a good. He see it as a form of, he see it as an expression of hate, because he indirectly caused the death of his mother. So I think that's why he chose the dad's love over Hassan.
Anything else? What would you do if you are in Amir's shoes? Like, if you're in his situation, what other things would you have done differently? Why would you have done it differently? say if I were in Amira's shoes, the part of betrayal could have been avoided, but the path to redemption, if that were me, I wouldn't have the actual moral courage to stand up to whatever I did in the past. Because from my perspective, it's more worth it to stay in America, live with your live with your wife, than going up back to Afghanistan, which is halfway through war, in a state of like constant terrorism, where everything is just in total chaos. None of us would actually want that, right? That's what I would like to believe. And even now, I rather prefer peace over throwing myself for another cause, unless it's totally life-threatening.
Okay, personally for me, right, I feel that if I were Amir, right, most of the things that would have happened would still have happened. At such a young age, right, it's very hard to know that you can stand up to your friends, especially if the other guy is older than you and bigger than you. It's very intimidating. It makes you feel weak, and I believe that's what Amir felt when he was watching the scene at the alley. So that's why that's the part of me that we wouldn't have done anything different from Amir. Basically, I would have either watched and just ran away or did nothing. However, right, I feel that the redemption part, right, I would have done because I'm more like a highly moral person, basically. It will plague me until I die if I ever did something like that. So it will just gnaw at me and keep gnawing until I cannot bear it anymore, until I do something to solve it. And in this case, that's what Amir did as well. So you can see it plaguing him throughout the book entirely, coming back to haunt him in his past. So I think even if I had to go to Afghanistan now, even though my parents would forbid it, but to search for this kind of gratifying experience or liberating experience, I think I would still have done it.
Isn't it exactly what Baba did? He died, he brought his secrets along with him to his deathbed.
No, I'm not talking about Baba.
Yeah.
Okay, so for me, right?
Cut. See the real thing now. Cut. 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so for me, right, I feel that I would have stood up for Hassan if the same thing happened to me. Because I'm a guy who, if something so immoral happens, I would not be able to take it, and I would just try to help, even if he's not my friend. But the point is, I feel even after I saved him from getting raped, right, it will still be awkward between Amir and Hassan. So the redemption part, I still think it will be it will be less of redemption and more of trying to get them less awkward, because Hassan will definitely be very shameful of his past. So maybe what I will do different is to try to get rid of the slave-master relationship that is going on between Hassan and Amir, and try to get it less awkward when they are together. Yeah.
I share the same opinion as Dick. I wouldn't, because Amir was a kid, so he was very innocent, and he was afraid to man up. So if I was Amir, I would also not be able to have the courage to help Hassan, because I myself would also be afraid of Asif, because if I would have interfered, then Asif might attack me too.
Cut. Wait, yeah, you want to say?
That's all I say.
You want that about how say first?
Wait, you can say first. You finish.
Okay, when you're done, just
Wait.
say 3, 2, 1, then, okay? You don't have much time.
CLE, what are you worrying about, boy?
Okay, now let's check.
Later,
Done. Okay. Done. Okay, go.
What do you handle this after school?
Hey, fuck you, can't stay first, then we
Okay,
go
okay,
finish, then we
okay,
go.
one second.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
对，3, 2, 1, start.
I think I would have done the same because as a kid, it's normal that you make the wrong judgment. It's normal that you make the wrong decisions, and it's only logical that you make a wrong decision and you get something, you learn something out of it. And I think that's what everyone has to go through. And for me, I will pick my family over my friends because those are the people that will always be with you all that while. And same goes to the point Peku mentioned. I won't let something like plague me for the rest of my life. If I'm gonna live in regret, then I might as well end what I started up. Yeah, but in that case, right, if I had known this earlier, I would have done something about it. And for me, I think I'll hate my father for the rest of my life because if it's not because of him being such a coward, I wouldn't have to live with that for all that while, and maybe my best friend and me will be still as good as ever.
Okay, wrap up.
Yes.
Why do you think kite running and the symbol of kite are repeated and chosen in the book?
So basically, the kite serves as a symbol of Amish happiness as well as guilt. Flying kite is what Amir enjoys as a child. So it's the only way he connects with father. But at the same time, the kite also takes a different significance when the kite becomes like a symbol of his guilt because of the kite he didn't save Hassan from the ring. So after that, the kite became a sign of his betrayal of Hassan. So and after that rape incident, Amir does not fly a kite again until he does so with Sora at the end of the story. It's because Amir has already redeemed himself at that time because he saved Sora from getting raped. So at that time he has already redeemed himself, and that's when he started to fly a kite.
If you were Hassan, can you forgive Amir? Is he still a friend to you compared to your own brother? If you were Hassan in that position, would you forgive Amir? Would you still treat him as a friend? I don't think any of us have been sodomized before. So if you were in that kind of awkward position, it'd be really weird, and I don't think I personally would forgive him. But you're still my friend.
I feel that I will forgive Amir because Amir wasn't, even though Amir didn't stood up for me, stood up for Hassan, but then Amir just did what most children will do, like running away from things that scare them. So raping is something that isn't very appropriate for and very easy for a kid to handle. So I will try to understand Amir rather than hating him.
I think if I were Hassan, I would also forgive Amir because Amir was very helpless at the moment. He couldn't do anything, he was innocent. He didn't know what to do. It was the first time he had experienced a situation. And I think Hassan also.
What do you think is Hassan's general opinion of the Amir story?
I think Hassan has always been very respectful of Amir. You can see even on the way he treated Amir after the rape incident, right? It's like master and slave relationship, but he's still very respectful of Amir, and I think deep down he always wanted to be Amir's friend. Because if you see at the end of the story, it's also like that.
I think that Hassan was trying very hard to match up to Amir's
level, so he was trying to be one of his good friends. But then after getting raped, it sort of like decreased his. It sort of like make him he feels more shameful when he sees Amir, so more shameful.
Throughout the whole story, Hassan still addresses Amir as Amir Akha, which is some major form of respect. And you know, when they had a relationship after, it was mostly from your point of perspective, it was mostly like Amir just rejecting Hassan. But from Hassan's own perspective, he was just trying to reach out to Amir because he already knew what was inside the girl.
Hassan was trying his best to. Hassan was very loyal to Amir. So he's like, everywhere Amir went, he would follow Amir. So you can see the loyalty between them. But then, going back to the previous question, about the Hassan forgiving Amir, I don't think Hassan expected Amir to forgive him.